It happened on an ordinary afternoon, the kind that usually slipped by unnoticed. But one quiet conversation changed the way she saw everything. She had just finished wiping down the kitchen counter when her phone buzzed. A short message from her husband popped up, casual and rushed. He would be late again. A work thing. Nothing unusual. She sighed, more tired than upset. Late evenings had become part of their rhythm lately. Dinner waited on the stove, growing cold in its pot. She turned the heat down and leaned against the counter, listening to the hum of the house. They had been married for 12 years. Long enough to move without thinking around each other's silences. She trusted him. Or at least, she thought she did. A knock came at the door just after sunset. Not loud. Not urgent. Just unexpected. She opened it to find a man she recognized immediately. Her husband's coworker, Daniel. He stood there with his hands clasped together, shoulders stiff. His smile looked practiced, unsure. "Sorry to stop by like this," he said gently. "I was nearby and thought I should talk to you." She hesitated, then stepped aside. Something in his voice made it hard to say no. They sat across from each other in the living room. The air felt heavier than it should have. Daniel looked around, then back at her. He cleared his throat once, then again. "I hope this doesn't come across the wrong way," he said. "That's not my intention at all." She nodded, heart tapping lightly against her ribs. "It's okay. What's going on?" He took a breath, slow and careful. The kind people take before stepping onto thin ice. "I've worked with your husband for years," he said. "He's a good man. Dedicated. Kind." Relief brushed through her, brief but warm. Then his expression shifted. "But lately," Daniel continued, "he hasn't seemed like himself." Her fingers tightened together in her lap. She stayed quiet, letting him speak. "He stays late, but not always for work," Daniel said softly. "And when he's there, his mind seems somewhere else." She felt a small sting, sharp and unexpected. Not anger. Something closer to worry. Daniel leaned forward slightly. "I'm not here to accuse or cause problems." She searched his face for signs of judgment. There were none. Only concern. "He talks about you," Daniel added. "About home. About feeling like he's failing somehow." Her breath caught. That word echoed in her chest. Failing. "He doesn't say it directly," Daniel said. "But I hear it in the pauses. In what he doesn't say." She swallowed. Her husband rarely talked about feelings anymore. "He once told me he didn't know how to reach you," Daniel continued. "That he didn't want to burden you with his worries." A quiet ache spread through her. She thought of all the nights they sat side by side, speaking about nothing. Daniel shifted, clearly uncomfortable. "I probably shouldn't be sharing this." "Why are you?" she asked gently. He met her eyes, steady now. "Because I think you deserve to know how much he still cares." The room felt suddenly too small. Too full of things left unsaid. "I lost my marriage by staying silent," Daniel admitted. "I thought love could survive without honesty. I was wrong." Her chest tightened at his words. They landed closer than she expected. "I see the way he looks when your name comes up," Daniel said. "He's not distant because he doesn't love you." She felt tears press behind her eyes. She blinked them away. "He's distant because he's scared," Daniel finished. Silence wrapped around them. Thick, but not hostile. She thought of the man she married. The laughter. The plans. The way he once reached for her hand without thinking. When Daniel stood to leave, he paused at the door. "I hope I didn't overstep." She shook her head slowly. "No. I think I needed this." After he left, she stood alone in the quiet house. The clock ticked softly, steady and patient. For the first time in a long while, she wondered if she had been listening at all. Not to his words, but to his heart. That night, as she waited for her husband to come home, her thoughts wouldn't settle. Something had shifted. Not suspicion. Understanding. And that realization felt both comforting and terrifying. If you're enjoying this story so far, please like the video and subscribe for more heartfelt tales. She heard keys at the door and felt her pulse quicken. What she chose to say next could change everything. She didn't move when the door opened. She just listened. The familiar sound of keys dropping into the bowl echoed through the hallway. Then footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Her husband appeared in the doorway, loosening his jacket. He looked tired in a way sleep never seemed to fix. "Hey," he said softly. His voice carried a cautious warmth. "Hey," she replied. Just one word, but it felt different tonight. He paused, noticing the untouched dinner. "I'm sorry I'm late." She nodded. "It's okay." But it wasn't just okay anymore. Not after what she'd heard. They sat at the table, the space between them filled with quiet. The kind that used to feel comfortable. Tonight, it felt fragile. He picked at his food, barely eating. She watched his hands, familiar and uncertain. "Long day?" she asked. He exhaled slowly. "Yeah. Longer than I expected." She studied his face. The faint lines near his eyes. The tension in his jaw. Daniel's words echoed in her mind. "He doesn't know how to reach you." She set her fork down. "Can I ask you something?" He looked up, surprised. "Of course." "Are you happy?" she asked gently. The question hung there, trembling. His eyes widened, just slightly. He leaned back, rubbing his hands together. "That's a big question." "I know," she said. "But I need to ask it." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he nodded once. "I don't know how to answer that honestly," he admitted. "And that scares me." Her chest tightened, but she stayed calm. "Why?" He stared at the table. "Because I love you. I love our life." He paused. "But I feel like I'm losing something I can't name." She leaned forward, listening. "Really listening." "I feel like I'm failing you," he said quietly. "Like I should be more. Better." Her breath caught. The same word Daniel had used. "You never told me that," she said. He shrugged. "I didn't want you to worry." She reached across the table, touching his hand. "I'm already worried. I just didn't know why." He looked up at her then. Truly looked. "I didn't want to disappoint you," he said. "So I stayed quiet." Her eyes burned. "I would rather hear the truth than feel shut out." He squeezed her hand, tentative at first. Then firmer. "I've been afraid we're drifting," he admitted. "And that it's my fault." She shook her head slowly. "We're drifting because we stopped talking." He let out a shaky breath. "I didn't know how to start again." She smiled sadly. "Neither did I." They sat there, hands joined, letting the silence change shape. It no longer felt heavy. "I ran into Daniel today," she said carefully. His shoulders stiffened. "You did." "He stopped by," she continued. "He was worried about you." Her husband closed his eyes briefly. "That sounds like him." "He said you still care," she added. "That you're just scared." He opened his eyes, glistening. "He told you that?" She nodded. "And I believe him." He laughed softly, a sound close to a sigh. "I didn't mean for anyone else to notice." "But they did," she said. "Because you matter." He leaned back, running a hand through his hair. "I feel like I've been standing still while everything else moved." She stood and walked around the table. She knelt beside him, meeting his eyes. "Then let's move together," she said. "Even if we don't know where yet." His lips parted, but no words came. Instead, he pulled her into a quiet embrace. They stayed like that for a while. No promises. No solutions. Just warmth. Just presence. Later that night, lying side by side, she stared at the ceiling. Hope stirred, gentle but cautious. She knew one conversation couldn't fix everything. But it had opened a door. And tomorrow, something unexpected would test how serious they really were. Morning arrived softly, as if it didn't want to interrupt what had begun the night before. Light filtered through the curtains, pale and careful. She woke before her husband. That used to be rare. She watched him sleep, noticing things she had stopped seeing. The crease between his brows. The steady rise of his chest. For the first time in months, she didn't feel distant. She felt curious. In the kitchen, she made coffee and stood by the window. The world outside moved on, unaware of the shift inside their home. Her phone buzzed. A message from an unfamiliar number. "Hi. This is Daniel. I hope it's okay to check in." She hesitated, then replied. "Yes. It's okay. I just wanted to know if everything's all right," he wrote. "No need to explain if it's not." She stared at the screen, then typed carefully. "Thank you for caring. We talked." 3 dots appeared. Then disappeared. "I'm glad," came the reply. "That's all I hoped for." She set the phone down, thoughtful. Not everyone who steps in means harm. When her husband joined her, he looked lighter. Still tired, but present. "Coffee smells good," he said. She smiled. "Sit. I'll pour." They talked easily at first. Small things. Plans for the day. Then he cleared his throat. "There's something I need to tell you." Her stomach fluttered, but she nodded. "I'm listening." "At work, there's been an opportunity," he said. "A role in another department." She waited, letting him find the words. "It would mean longer hours at first," he continued. "But eventually, more balance." "Why haven't you mentioned it before?" she asked. He looked embarrassed. "I didn't think I deserved it." Her heart ached. "You do." He smiled weakly. "That's what Daniel said too." She raised an eyebrow, gently teasing. "He seems wise." He chuckled, then grew serious. "I was afraid change would pull us further apart." She reached for his hand. "Or it could bring us closer." Later that afternoon, she met her sister for a walk. She needed air. Perspective. They walked slowly, leaves crunching underfoot. She shared everything. Her sister listened without interrupting. Then nodded. Sometimes, her sister said, people don't drift because they stop loving. They drift because they stop believing they're enough. The words settled deep. They felt true. That evening, her husband came home earlier than usual. A small victory. They cooked together, laughing when the sauce spilled. It felt like a memory and a promise at once. After dinner, he hesitated by the sink. "Can I ask you something?" "Always," she said. "Have you been unhappy?" he asked. She thought carefully. "I've been lonely." "That's different." He nodded, absorbing it. "I don't want you to feel that way again." She smiled softly. "Then stay." "I will," he said. "And when I can't, I'll tell you why." Later, as they sat on the couch, the doorbell rang. Unexpected. Sharp. They exchanged a look. The kind that says, "Together?" She opened the door. Daniel stood there again, holding a folder. "I'm sorry," he said quickly. "I should have called." Her husband appeared behind her, surprised. "Daniel." Daniel lifted the folder slightly. "I found something at work. I think you should see it." The mood shifted instantly. Hope gave way to uncertainty. She stepped aside to let him in. Her heart beat faster. Whatever was in that folder was about to test the fragile piece they had just found. The folder sat unopened on the coffee table. No one reached for it. Daniel stood near the door, unsure whether to sit or leave. Her husband watched him closely. "You said this was important," her husband finally said. His voice was calm, but tight. Daniel nodded. "It is. I wouldn't be here otherwise." She lowered herself onto the couch, hands folded. "Then please," she said, "just tell us." Daniel took a seat across from them. He opened the folder slowly. "These are internal project notes," he explained. "Nothing confidential. But revealing." Her husband leaned forward. "What kind of project?" "The restructuring," Daniel said. "The one that hasn't been announced yet." Her pulse quickened. She had heard rumors but nothing clear. "There's a chance your department could be dissolved," Daniel continued. "Not immediately. But soon." The room felt colder. Her husband ran a hand over his face. "I didn't want to worry you," Daniel added. "But I thought you should know before decisions are made for you." Silence followed. Heavy, but honest. "That explains the offer," her husband murmured. "They're moving people quietly." Daniel nodded. "You were recommended." "Strongly." Her husband looked stunned. By who? Daniel hesitated. By me. She turned to Daniel, surprised. You did that? Daniel met her gaze. I believe in him. And I believe in your marriage. Her husband exhaled, long and slow. I didn't know. I didn't want credit, Daniel said. I wanted you to have a chance. Tears welled in her eyes. Not from fear, but from gratitude. After Daniel left, the house was quiet again. But the silence felt different now. They sat together, processing. The future suddenly looked uncertain and wide open. I should take the new role, her husband said eventually. I've been avoiding it out of fear. She nodded. I think you should too. He looked at her, searching. You're not scared? I am, she admitted. But I'm more scared of staying stuck. He smiled, small but sincere. I don't want to lose us. You won't, she said. Not if we keep choosing each other. That night, they talked longer than they had in years. Dreams. Doubts. Small hopes. He told her about the pressure he felt to provide. She told him about feeling invisible. Neither blamed. Both listened. Before sleep, he held her hand. Thank you for staying, he whispered. She squeezed back. Thank you for letting me in. Days passed quickly after that. Paperwork. Conversations. Change. The new role was confirmed. A fresh start, wrapped in nerves. On his first day, she watched him leave the house with a steadier step. Pride warmed her chest. But that afternoon, her phone rang again. Daniel's name flashed on the screen. She answered, uneasy. Hello. I didn't want to alarm you, Daniel said. But something came up. Her heart skipped. What is it? I might be transferring too, he said. To another city. She leaned against the counter. Oh. I wanted to tell you first, he added. I won't be around anymore. She felt an unexpected sadness. He had become part of their story. Thank you, she said sincerely. For everything. Take care of him, Daniel replied. And yourself. After the call ended, she stared out the window. Change was coming from every direction. That evening, when her husband returned home, she hadn't told him yet. She watched his face, glowing with cautious hope. She wondered how he would react. And whether this goodbye would reopen old fears. Would you like me to start the next part? If yes, please reply with yes. Thanks for following along. I'm glad you're enjoying the story. Some endings don't arrive with noise. They arrive with understanding. She waited until after dinner to tell him about Daniel's call. The house was calm, wrapped in evening light. Daniel might be transferring, she said gently. To another city. Her husband froze for a moment. Then he nodded slowly. I figured something like that might happen, he said. He's the kind of person who keeps moving forward. She watched his face closely. Looking for fear. Or regret. Instead, she saw gratitude. And something like peace. He helped me when I didn't know how to ask for help, her husband said. I won't forget that. Neither will I, she replied. Later that night, they sat on the porch together. The air was cool, steady. I've been thinking, he said. About us. About what comes next. She turned toward him. I have too. I don't want to go back to how things were, he continued. Quiet. Distant. She nodded. I don't either. So let's make a promise, he said. Not a big one. Just an honest one. She smiled softly. I'm listening. When something feels heavy, he said, we say it out loud. Even if it's messy. Her eyes filled. That sounds perfect. The weeks that followed were different. Not perfect. But real. Some days were tired. Some conversations were hard. But they kept showing up. Again and again. He grew into his new role, confidence returning slowly. She found herself laughing more. One afternoon, a card arrived in the mail. No return address. Inside, a short note. Proud of you both. Keep choosing each other. She smiled, knowing exactly who it was from. And why it mattered. That night, she and her husband sat close on the couch. No phones. No distractions. I'm glad he spoke to you that day, her husband said quietly. Even though it scared me. She leaned her head on his shoulder. So am I. Because it made me realize something new, he added. She looked up at him. What's that? That love doesn't fade all at once, he said. It fades when we stop paying attention. She squeezed his hand. And it grows when we do. Outside, the evening settled into stillness. The kind that feels earned. They didn't know what the future held. But they knew how they would face it. Together.